And I'm Lorna McGill.
And we're here with the Isn't She Amazing podcast. And Lorna, who's our new guest today?
We have an amazing woman. Molly
Amazing.
Brooks is with us today. She's the CEO and founder of Heroes Bridge. It's a nonprofit that works with veterans, older veterans. And she's just got such an interesting story. I've been fortunate to have a conversation with her. And so if you just want to give us our audience a little introduction to who you are, we'd love it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Molly Brooks, and as you said, I am the CEO and founder of Heroes Bridge, which is a veteran-serving nonprofit, but with a bit of a twist. We specialize only in older veterans, so 65 and older, which pretty much lands being our nation's Vietnam, Korea, and World War II veterans.
That's right. That's a really specific need, but I'm wondering, what was your background that led into that? What made you say one day, oh, I think I'm going to start an organization for older veterans?
Yeah, so I guess like going way back in background, I am a proud daughter of a Vietnam veteran. My dad was a career Marine and went to Vietnam twice, and actually a lot of other deployments to different places, but people kind of focus on the Vietnam service. So, I think you bring that childhood experience. I was born in the midst of Vietnam in 1971 and kind of grew up in his footsteps of this kind of larger than life Vietnam veteran, and brought that to my career. When I grew up, I became a nurse. I've been a nurse about 30 years now. So I always noticed the veterans in my practice. I chose very early on to specialize in gerontology, which most people probably know that's the care of older people and seniors. And I just always noticed the veterans and loved caring for them, but also unfortunately noticed a lot of our senior veterans that were falling through the cracks and living in very difficult circumstances. So that's how I came to know that there was this, I think, glaring need to care better for our aging veterans in America.
So is Heroes Bridge a place where they live or a place where they retreat?
So right now, so I founded the organization about 7 years ago, and right now all of our work has been at the street level in the veterans' own homes. Which for several years was kind of in a 5-county area on the Virginia side of Washington, D.C. And I think one of the reasons it's grown so exponentially is because we do go at the street level. There are a lot of organizations that provide referrals or networking, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Those things are needed as well. But I think when you come to vulnerable populations who can't drive or get on the internet, you actually need someone that crosses the threshold and goes to their home and helps them. And so for the first 5 to 6 years, all of our work has been at the street level in a 5-county area, going into their homes. And we provide rides, meals, companionship to these older veterans, a lot of resource navigation, getting them the benefits they earned from the VA. But in the last year, we're fortunate to receive some state funding to expand our services. We now have a virtual Battle Buddy program where we're able to serve almost about a quarter of the state of Virginia, a quarter of the Commonwealth, and looking at a partnership with the VA to scale that and take it nationally. So yeah, it's just almost can't throttle the growth if I wanted to. It's growing pretty rapidly.
Well, that's exciting. So here you've got a nurse's background, but also now you're saying, but you do this, we drive them here, we take them meal, we do all this stuff. Tell us a little bit about what your organization is like, and who makes up the workers, or is it volunteer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now there's 7 of us that are actual employees of Heroes Bridge. So I think for your listeners that are trying to find their place and should I build something, should I do something, it was a journey for me. there were no paid employees for the first 2 years. It was all volunteerism. And we were slowly able to build our capacity to actually have 2 full-time, we call them battle buddies, that do that street level work that I talked about. And then we have a full-time volunteer coordinator, full-time office manager. I took the leap in 2020 and left my healthcare career. It was a scary leap, but I did it. And I'm actually an employee of Heroes Bridge, although it was all done on the side and for no pay. And in many of the early years, I now am able to receive a salary, and that's my full-time job when I wake up every morning.
Let me ask you this. So what was the thing that just like you just one day you just said, I want to leave nursing and I want to start a nonprofit? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was 2020, and I think the organization was about 4.5 years old. And I think there were just a convergence of things. So first of all, it was too much. As I said, I was in this big healthcare leadership role, commuting into Northern Virginia, into Falls Church and towards the DC area with a high pressure job, and running this quickly growing nonprofit. And I was doing both. So it was a lot. And I think there were choices that were going to have to be made either way. But then of course, we all know what happened in 2020. I remember I also had that unsettled feeling, like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I in the right place? I've been in nursing for 25 years, and it's just still seeing these older people living without food or transportation. So I had that unsettled feeling. And then of course, in March of 2020, COVID hit. And I think that I did the Great Resignation before it was a thing, because I did it very early on. I just couldn't do both anymore. And I just had to, there wasn't a lot of I knew it was time, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where I had been unsettled for a year. Just all of a sudden I wasn't afraid anymore.
Well, that's what before we went on the air, you were telling us about that part of your journey where you were just sort of feeling this. Tell us about that vague feeling about,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to do this or should
I
do
always
it
say it's like
anymore.
that feeling in like your gut. For
Yeah.
me, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Well, and I was 49. I have 4 boys, and my youngest was going to college soon. He was still in the home, but he was leaving within the next year. I'd had this long career in nursing, and I read a book, actually. It's called Halftime. It's a great book. I recommend it. It's about a gentleman that had a very very good career. He was a man of means, and he lost his son in a tragic drowning. And he all of a sudden didn't want to do anything that he was doing anymore. It just completely changed his perspective. And the book talks a lot about how much society gives you support in the first half of your life, when you're choosing your college, when you're choosing your spouse, when you're choosing your degree, when you're choosing your job, when you're choosing your first home. And that's great, but nobody ever talks about the second half. With life expectancy now, there's a whole nother second half after 50. And I read that book, and that unsettled feeling just, I just knew that I needed to do something different. And yeah, so COVID hit, and I went to my husband, who had been by my side on the journey of founding the organization. He's a veteran as well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so scared, because I was really half of the household income. We both had, were blessed with good salaries, and I was half of the household income. And I was scared to death to go to him. And I said, I can't do both anymore. And I just have this feeling I'm supposed to leave my career and just do Heroes Bridge. And I kind of stopped and waited for the reply. And all he said was, I know. Like, he had been seeing it too, and felt it, and was completely supportive in that journey. So yeah, I told my 2 bosses, had a difficult conversation with them. One of them told me I was crazy and I would be sorry. The other one didn't say much.
Nothing like that supportive boss,
Yeah. But I was telling Lorna in a conversation a couple weeks ago, when he told me that, I cried for like 30 minutes, and I am not a crier. Again, I was raised by a Marine. It takes a lot to make me cry. But I cried for like 30 minutes. And then when I was done, it made me mad. it made me angry, because I had just really worked, done a lot in 4 years with this organization. And I think over the last couple years, as I did, made that brave leap, sometimes I let that anger kind of fuel me. Like, no, it's not stupid, and I'll show you guys. So I think that's one thing, when people doubt you, you can sometimes use that to your benefit.
That's right. That's where anger can be fuel for you, just to kind of get over the initial hump and the fear
Sure.
of
Yeah.
that. That's a huge decision. And I do know, and we were talking about this before we went on too, about women over 50 who are basically our target audience. And they go through transitions like this all the time. You went through an empty nest, as did Lorna, around the same time as you had to make this leap, as did Lorna. And it's a scary time. And I think a lot of our audience goes through this stuff. And
Well, I think as you get older, I don't know what you think, Molly, but like you get that unsettled feeling, and you probably had a clearer direction than a lot of women do. I'm like, what's next? And we talk about, as you said, you're living longer now. And so when you look at, okay, I potentially could have 25, 30 more years to live. That's a long time when you look back on your life and you look at what you accomplished in the prior 20 or 30 years. You've got a lot in you still, and we have a lot of assets. I mean, we just have so much to give still.
just so you know,
Yeah,
Lorna, I think
absolutely.
you're underestimating your 25 years. I have 25 years left, just in case you're interested.
I know.
I'm almost 70. So when you kids are talking about 25 years, I think you're underestimating. I just had to get that out because all our audience is not 50. Some of us are older than that.
True.
Don't let me interrupt. It's just my little 2 cents.
Yeah. Something else, Lorna, that I think you're exactly right. Your marriage changes a little bit
Yep.
when the kids are gone, and you're just sitting there looking at each other. And we all go through this. I was so happy when I found you guys. I actually searched for something like this. When I was reading that Halftime book, I thought, I'm not the only one. And I searched for, are there support groups or something? So you guys must have been doing the same thing at the same time, because this is so needed. And something else I'll say to tag on to what you said, Lorna, is I don't know if we ever talk about the gifts that we bring once we're of this age. Just so much knowledge and experience, no matter what your walk of life was. I think as women that are turning 50, you've been through some stuff. You've learned some stuff. You've had to do things. And it was funny, I was having a conversation, and I don't even remember with who, a couple weeks ago, about, would you go back? Like, if you could be 25 again. And I remember distinctly saying, I would not go back unless I could take all of everything I know now
Right.
back with me.
Take that
Because I would
wisdom.
do a lot of things differently.
That's right. And I think we'd all do that, because otherwise, why live it over again without the wisdom? It's just.
But we wouldn't be who we are today, likely, if we had not experienced, gone through all of that. I think that builds
That's
us
right.
to be who we are today.
That's right. Molly, that's a great point. Yeah.
That is.
But so here I'm thinking of, there's so many aspects of this you could talk about, because you've been through this series of transitions. You founded an organization, which is difficult to do, especially through COVID, and then you're dealing with a really significant part of the population that we owe a great debt of gratitude to, and you want to do them justice. So what would you say is the most important part of what you do at Heroes Bridge? And not you do, but as Heroes Bridge does. as a
Oh,
group?
yeah. So the organization, so there's 9 million veterans over the age of 65. I think when people talk about veterans, just because of the recent conflicts, they automatically go to the veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan in their
Mhm.
mind. But actually, half of America's veterans are 65 and older, and it amounts to like 9 million. And many of them live in rural areas. You know, the VA's 2 hours away. They have no internet. They're lower income, often in the rural areas, not always, but often. And the VA, they aren't connected to the VA, first of all, and second of all, the VA can't manage it alone. There's no other healthcare population that's that large and spread out across America like that. So I think that I hope that that we're innovators in how we take care of the elderly, and how developing a model of care that can reach that many seniors is what I think our most important mission is. And as a leader, in my background in gerontology, a great burden isn't the right word, a great responsibility to find a model that can reach so many of them, because you're right, it's so important, and so many of them were not treated well when they came home, especially our Vietnam veterans. So the best we can do is make reparations for that now in their later years. So yeah, just finding that model of care that can help so many millions is my greatest responsibility.
So when are you going to write your book about that?
Oh gosh, I've never thought of that.
You
That's funny.
never
That
have?
has never crossed my mind.
Because I'm thinking with your vast experience, your dad's a veteran, your husband's a veteran, you know, you just you're a nurse working with the veterans. You have founded a veteran organization that my guess is you have an opinion.
And you also grew up with the health system.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
let me just ask you what you think needs to be done that's not being done.
So this is very healthcare speak, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's been a big focus on a thing called social determinants of health. And really what that means is, in healthcare, we spend so much money on lab tests or drugs or ER visits or just so many things in the healthcare system. And it dawned on us about, probably 6 to 7 years ago, that there are things in everyone's life, whether it's seniors or anyone else, that actually affect your health more than healthcare, which is funny. We just keep thinking we can just like give more healthcare and it'll make things better. There was a study done that 80% of a person's health and welfare are actually related to social factors, not what medicine they're taking or who their doctor is. So it's like, do they have good nutrition? When they need to go to the doctor, do they even have a ride? It's as simple as what zip code they live in. Your health outcomes can be better or worse depending on your zip code. I think there was a study done. They studied life expectancy in the District of Columbia. So in Northwest DC, which is very affluent and wealthy, the life expectancy was like a staggering 98 years. So yeah, we still have almost like 50 years left,
right?
If we live in Northwest DC. But in Anacostia in Southwest DC, which is very difficult neighborhood, I think it was 67 years. And they're literally like 2
Huge.
miles apart.
Huge difference.
And the life expectancy was so different. So in my opinion, we need to take some dollars, whether that's from the Medicare system, Medicaid system, wherever, and we need to spend more money on social determinants of health programs that do provide nutrition and transportation and companionship to these, in my case, it's seniors, but I think it could be used in many vulnerable populations. And there has been a trend over the last 5 years to do exactly that. Especially, I've seen it the most in the Medicaid system, where they're starting to spend money on social determinants of health. And I think that's our biggest problem. And there are many, but I think that is the biggest opportunity to really affect health outcomes, in my opinion.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you have statistics on this, but I'm wondering, since our audience is largely women over 50, do you have any statistics on how many of those veterans are female?
Oh, that's a really good question. I should, but I don't. I know how many of ours are. We serve about 500 veterans, and I think we have about 20 female veterans that we follow. Now, I think that changed a lot with our Desert Storm veterans, which would be the first Gulf War in 1990. So women serving in the military before Desert Storm, they were often nurses or clerical workers. They weren't allowed to serve in combat, and actually in Desert Storm they weren't allowed to serve in combat either. But I think women were joining in the 90s more so than ever. So I think when you do divide them into those older than 65 and younger than 65, the percentages will be skewed a lot. The Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, they were allowed to serve in combat, and they were right there. You look at any group picture and there's usually women in the unit. So that's good to see.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Wow.
But so how do the women veterans that you serve, how are their needs different than the men's?
Oh, it's so crazy you asked that. The women do so much better. And you know what I think it is? Well, first of all, I think we're amazing, as you guys say, but
Very perceptive.
Beyond that, these men, the wives did everything. Like
is it some of it is it socialization? Because
that too,
like women are like the social arrangers of your life. I know I mean, I'm married and I'm the one who plans most of our social engagements, and I know most of our friends. So is it harder for men to be like, are social and get are they lonely?
Yes. I wish I had kept the statistics since we founded the organization, but a large percentage of our male veterans are often recent widowers. And when I say recent, and it could be anywhere from a year to 5 years, they've lost their wife and they just do not do well. And it's exactly what you said, Lorna. They kept the social calendar. They kept in touch with the kids often.
Right.
I mean, I'm going back, but I don't remember. My dad called me one time from the time I moved out of the house until now. I think a friend of mine from high school had passed away tragically, and he called me to tell me that was the only time my father ever called me. And so yeah, they kept the social calendar even with the children, but also they did the grocery shopping, they cooked, they cleaned. I mean, I hate to stereotype it that way, but the older men, just unfortunately losing that spouse can be quite devastating, and they just kind of stay where they were when they lost her. They don't clean, they don't cook. Yeah, so it's very sad, and we go in and hopefully kind of re-energize them and get them moving and socializing again. But the women, I have found they want to help us. It's like someone will call. A good example, and I don't think she would mind us sharing this story at all, is we had a call from a lady veteran that has a small farm, and she had been ill and she was having trouble taking care of it. So we got some scouts to go in there and help her with a lot of chores. And we've known her for a few years, and there'll be a season where she gets a little behind and they'll go in and do it again. But she helps us more. That was a very temporary situation for her, and she wants to help us. So again, women are just amazing. Another one is our official Heroes Bridge ambassador. She's 86 years old, and I go out for the day with her and she makes me tired. I'm like, can we stop now, Carolyn? So the women seem to do better, and they actually want to give back. Some of our men do too. I don't want to say that they don't, because some of the men do too, but the women are pretty amazing. They are.
And I do think statistically, men, not just veterans, but men don't do as well if they lose a spouse. You know, I think men are, because for many, many years as a therapist too, I think many men remarry rather quickly because of that. It's just, you know,
Yes.
their focus, they do a great job of compartmentalizing their lives to do one task at a time, whether it's being in the military or going to work or whatever, and they're very focused, kind of like the hunt kill sort of thing. Their whole job was bringing home the dinner way back, and the woman had to do everything else. And that was, you know, I don't think that's wrong stereotyping. I think it's just the way things have been throughout the years and the ages and so forth. And women are the ones that generally have been known to keep the home. Now, of course, there's women that do a great killer job at work and come home and do that also. Many women, I think, in our audience will say, well, yeah, I used to do it all. I still do it all. But it's just the difference in male and female that, you know, is changing somewhat, but I think it's not surprising to hear you say that about how the women do better. But yeah. So what are the main issues that you find yourself? Is it all healthcare? Now you said no, you took scouts over to help somebody with their farm. You are, you know, helping them in many ways, but what's the biggest issue that you deal with most of the time with your veterans?
Yeah, we do keep some statistics on that, and really our largest call. So the veterans are never the ones that call us for assistance. I could probably count on one hand the time it's actually been veterans. It's the healthcare
Really?
system. Oh yeah. Our biggest referral source is the healthcare system, and then the social services, the welfare agencies, churches, other nonprofits that have, you know, come across an older veteran that isn't doing well. And the number one reason we get called is they are alone. They just don't have anyone. And, you know, usually when an older person gets older and they start having trouble, they have a daughter or a niece or someone that swoops in and takes them to the doctor, make sure they have food in the house. But these older guys, mostly guys, they just have no one. They either never had children, or they, you know, kids live across the country, or they're estranged from their families for some reason. So that's the number one call, is that they're socially isolated and alone. The number two call is housing issues, and it can be they're living in substandard housing, like it's falling down around them, it's not clean, or unaffordable. You know, the average Social Security check's about $1,500, and rent in our area is about $1,200. So it doesn't leave a lot for our seniors that are living on just Social Security. So substandard and unaffordable housing is our number two issue, which I had to be bold again a couple years ago, and we announced our intention to build a village of micro housing just for older veterans. So that projects, we're a couple years in on that, and that is because our number two issue is housing related issues.
How many houses are you building?
44 cottages is what the engineers and architects have designed. It may change, but right now that's what it's looking like.
And where is that development?
So in the town of Warrenton, right in the middle. Yeah.
Really? I didn't even know that. It's right in the middle of Warrenton.
Well, it's not under construction yet, and I can't say the exact location because you know, it's complex. It should not be this hard to do something meaningful, but the politics and approvals required to build something like this are very complex, and the government officials don't like you announcing that you're going to build something
Yeah.
somewhere before they've told you that you can. But we are super close to actually submitting the application to the town. I think we might do that in the next 30 days. And then it's not like it's a secret. We haven't, it's on our website. We just got funding from the House of Representatives. So, I mean, it's not a secret, but we're just not, the reason you probably haven't heard it is
not
until it's official, the town doesn't like you to get out in front of them like that. So happy to share
okay.
more offline, and
Okay.
hopefully everyone will see more details in the future, very near
Okay.
future, hopefully.
So,
I'm
so
gonna-
yeah, go ahead, Norna.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna just do a little switch gears. When we had spoken before, you had said, when we talked about transition, you'd said, it's like when you take that leap, it's really scary and you don't know what it's gonna be like. But the analogy you used, I loved. You said it's like reading a book. Like you start a book and you don't know where it's gonna end, what the end is. And that is like your life. You're turning those pages. I mean, I
Yeah.
just love that. I don't know if you want to just elaborate on that.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that conversation.
I love
Well,
that.
I was so afraid to start Heroes Bridge because I had this wealth of business experience from running a large healthcare organization, but not really on my own. Like it wasn't mine. They just hired me. And I had an accounting department and an HR department and a legal department. And and then healthcare is so highly regulated. I kept having this fear, like, I don't know how to start a nonprofit. And I know there's all these IRS rules, and I know I have to find my own money. And I had this fear for like a year. And then one day after leaving a veteran's house that was living in a tool shed, I just heard God say, just start. It just like, it wasn't actually, I didn't hear his voice or anything. It was like in my head, like this thing that just kept saying, just start. And as you said, Lorna, I kind of had this realization, who cared if I failed? Like, it wasn't going to be on CNN that Molly Brooks tried to start a nonprofit and it didn't work out. And once I had that realization that nobody would probably really notice or care much, then I didn't have as much fear. So I did, some family and friends, we cobbled together $750 because that's what it costs to do the filing and everything. And I just started, and I really didn't know where it was going to go. And I was happy if it just took a bag of groceries to veterans that needed it. And once I let go of all of my fear of how it would end, or it became less scary. And I don't want to make it, there was a lot to figure out, but I just didn't have the fear anymore. And I just kind of did it.
Wow. And you've done an incredible work. So the question is, because we all need a community to support us, what can our audience do? What can Lorna and I do? What can the people watching do to support you and your veterans?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I think one of the things I would encourage everybody to do is go on our website, click around and learn more about what we do. There's a news tab that will really give you the best kind of like snapshot of what we do with our veterans. And there's also a form on there where you can get our newsletter. We don't spam. I think we probably send out one monthly newsletter, and then, you'll get some emails around Veterans Day and stuff like that. But would love to have anyone sign up for the newsletter and follow our Facebook page, because then you'll just learn more about what we're doing and you'll see ways to engage. You'll be offered many ways, whether it's through volunteerism or events that you might want to come to. But then I think for the veterans, because there are 9 million of them, and I know you guys have an audience, I bet your listeners have one around them, down the street, at church. I just really, because we can't reach all of them right now, hopefully someday we can, but anyone can notice that an older veteran down the street's mailbox is full and maybe he can't get to his mailbox anymore. So any of you can kind of look around and you can kind of tell them, they often will wear something that indicates they're a veteran. So I just encourage everybody to keep your eyes out for ones around you. You can be a Heroes Bridge too, just by helping and offering help to ones that might be around you.
Great suggestion. So,
Yeah.
so what is your website? It's
Oh, good.
heroes dot bridge, or no, heroes
Yeah.
dash bridge.
It's just
One word.
heroesbridge.org.
Okay.
Google we're usually, I hope, where it's still the first thing that pops up if you just Google Heroes Bridge.
Well, and I'll put
But
it on the web. I'll put it on the movie here.
awesome. Yeah, but it's just heroesbridge.org, and a Facebook search should bring us right up for you there too.
All
That's
right.
awesome. Awesome work you're doing.
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
My
so much.
pleasure.
We really encourage everybody to go to heroesbridge.org and sign up for the newsletter and Facebook and follow them on Facebook. So Molly, thank you so much. Really, really informative and interesting. And we just wish you all the best.